Hello and welcome to Simply Single, the men's edition. I'm Kenny Anderson, delighted to be here with you to discuss a topic today that we think will be of some interest to you. But first of all, I want to introduce my guest today, Mark Lacey. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me. My name is Mark Lacey, as Kenny mentioned, and I'm a poet, author, and a lecturer.
All right, good to have you here. Brian Cordell, my man.
How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good to have you both, actually, because the last time we had a chance to talk, we had some good energy in the conversation. I'm looking forward to another spirited conversation today as well. But let's get right to it. You know, we like to ask you the question first, and then we'll talk to our guys about what we want to talk about. My question today is this. You know, a lot of guys go through relationship challenges, and it's the result of things that they've not resolved in their younger part of life. Maybe it was childhood, maybe it was during their teenage years, or maybe it was during their young adult years. The reality is that when people have issues and challenges, it's a good thing to get help, and that means perhaps talking to somebody. Is it a good thing for black men to seek counseling in regard to relationships? We'll let you answer that question first. So let's see what you have to say, and then we'll talk to our guys.
Okay. Desmond posted on Facebook, "Some men feel that if you need counseling, you're weak. We've been programmed to think we can handle anything and everything." Eddie said, "It's particularly true in black and religious communities where counseling is a sign of weakness. I'm proud to say I've been to counseling on more than one occasion. We have to dispel the myth of shame and let these professionals use their talents. There is no shame in it." Mike responded, "These men said it perfectly. I'm a 28-year-old young man and counseling is one of the best choices I've ever made. It absolutely changed my mindset completely."
Welcome back to Simply Single, the men's edition. And we certainly heard some ideas about what people thought about as it relates to black men seeking counseling. You know, this is an area that's really close to my heart because I am a professional counselor. And I can tell you that 20 years of counseling, I saw very few black men in counseling. I'd say less than 1% actually, which is, we talk 20 years, you know, seeing people on a regular basis. And less than 1% of black men coming in for counseling is a profound statement to make. We just don't seem to, I say, get it with regards to reaching out when we need help. But I also understand that that has a lot to do with the way we're socialized. So I want to talk about that a little bit with you all today. Brian, I'm going to start with you. First of all, the notion of seeking counseling for some people terrifies them because the idea of walking into that building that has counseling over it or some other kind of marker scares people to death. And they think that the minute somebody sees them walking in there, coming out of there, or even standing on the block close by, that there's something wrong with them. So there's still a heavy stigma attached. What are your thoughts personally about black men seeking counseling?
I love it. You're right. And I experienced that. I was very fearful, but I am a black man that has had the opportunity to get counseling. Didn't realize that I needed it at one point. And Dr. Renee, who has joined us and I think will be joining us on the show today, counseled me. And she was one that recognized we had worked on a couple of projects together, and she recognized that I needed to deal with some issues. And she just told me flat out, she said, "You might want to deal with some things before you start doing these types of programs." And of course, I've had a relationship with you for many years, and we have sat down and had a lot of conversations. So I remember like initially, like, there's a fear, it just takes over you because you don't know what to expect. You don't know what's going to come up, but it's the best thing that I have ever done in life was to get counseling, to dig deep into myself, to go back into my childhood. And when I say childhood, I'm talking 3, 4 years old, to find out things that I didn't remember. And it is a scary process, but it's a very liberating process. And it's nothing like the feeling of freedom that you get to accept and even embrace some of the things that have happened to you, to be able to turn those things into positive things, into powerful things, to help people and to help yourself, to help family members, to help friends. And And any black man that's watching the show, I would encourage you, please get counseling, whether you think you need it or not. Just take one chance, get one session, just to see what it's like. And it's a very powerful thing.
All right, so let me tie a couple of things together that you just said, and I want you to just give me a response to what you're saying. And I'm coming over to Mark and see what he's thinking. Vulnerability and risk. Two of the things that probably frighten men to the core, because we're socialized to be tough, to be in control, to be problem solvers, to fix things. That's our nature. That's who we are. That's what we're expected to be. And because of that, now I'm being asked to be vulnerable, to share with you things that nobody else may know, things that I fear. Ooh, I'm a black man and I fear something. I've got to expose myself in ways that are crazy in my mind, and I'm going to actually trust you to have those things. Vulnerability and risk. How big are those two dimensions of counseling as it relates to breaking through the process?
They are very big, and that the word that I used was liberating. Again, society tells us that we're supposed to be strong. We're not supposed to be vulnerable. We're not supposed to take risks with sharing our emotions. But again, on my spiritual journey, I have to remember that I'm a child of God, that my map is the Bible, and there's something in the Bible that talks about when you're weak, He's strong. And in my weakness and becoming weak and becoming vulnerable, I have found so much strength in that. And that's another thing that in your manhood and your growth, there's something that you can stand up tall and proud about, that I was able to say that I have these issues and I've dealt with these things, but look at me, you know, I'm a man still, regardless. But it is risk and vulnerability. I mean, it's real, but it's worth taking the risk and being vulnerable.
Mark, let's be a fly on the wall in your life for a moment. We're overhearing your conversation with your guys over the years, the same as I'm listening to the ones that I've had over the years. And it's been very seldom that I've heard just the guys sitting around who are very comfortable talking about football, basketball, and sports, who are very comfortable talking about women, who are very comfortable talking about things they're doing at work, who rarely sit down and say, I got a problem. I need help. I'm broken. I'm upset. I'm confused. I'm hurt. I'm lost. I'm angry. All the things that we deal with, we don't sit around and talk about those things. We don't ask for guidance and direction. Has my experience, which I think is a fairly common experience, been similar to yours as it relates to as you're hanging out with your guys and what they talk about and what they think about, or is it different?
Well, allow me to just peel the skin off the onion and just go real with it. I think that, and again, we probably use society about 1 million times, and I'm probably going to use it 1 million and more times. Society will have principle way over here, and practice will be on a completely different planet. You can sit up in a church service and people can stand up and give testimonies, and everybody will sit around and say, oh, praise God. He or she is getting that off their chest. But as soon as that service is over with, before you can even leave the parking lot, this is starting to happen. And men are very cognizant of that. As soon as word gets out, whether I'm supposed to be worried about it or not, I'm just being real with it. As soon as word gets out, that is the biggest fear. Oh, what's his name? Went and sought counseling. And that's the first thing that's going to be on their mind when they see you shopping at Walmart. And whether a man is supposed to be worried about or not, that is what's going to take place.
Hold that thought for just a few moments. We'll be back in just a moment. Simply Single, the men's edition.
1 in 4 households.
40% of all women have never been married. Wait! Don't get way down in gloomy facts. Download this new ebook by Patrice Thomas Conwell. Follow her journey to accept and appreciate the single life. Nobody ever told me I might not get married. One Woman's Journey to Acceptance. Available at these retailers and more.
welcome back to the broadcast. And Mark, you were just beginning to peel the layers off that onion
Right.
as it relates to what's really going on in our minds and experiences. And I love the direction you're taking us in. I want to pick up on that a little bit more too, in terms of just how we deal with these challenges in the context of our faith. Finish talking about what you were just sharing.
There is tremendous pressure in dealing with the societal perception of the thought of going to seek counseling for something. Because whenever that word gets out, a lot of people will have preconceived notions. And everybody's entitled to how they feel. However, how they feel is going to be stuck in their mind. And what's stuck in their mind is going to govern how they react to you. And people know this. I mean, you can't get older and not be wiser to this.
So they're going to get tagged. They're going to get labeled.
You're going to get labeled, and that's why, and this is not an excuse, it's a reality. That's why men are hesitant to go to the doctor.
Good point.
Men are hesitant to talk to a female counterpart about any type of issue or what have you, simply because of the perception. Now, if society is trying to cultivate this alpha male out of you, what you just mentioned or the suggestions, they're totally taboo. They're totally taboo, because in classrooms, people know what's right and wrong, and we'll talk about it and nod. In church, people know what's right and wrong and will amen and nod their head. But as soon as they're not in an environment in which other people are watching them, watching how they react, all of a sudden, this practice comes into play. Principle is out the window. Principle is an afterthought. I think a common thief knows right from wrong. Whether they can apply what's right or whether they choose to apply what's right is a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
And years ago, the softer side of males was promoted commercially. I think there was money being made behind it. It was like an 80s or a 90s thing. But then you had certain things that came about, and a lot of people, all of these different lifestyles are being promoted. And nowadays, if one were to say softer side and apply that to a male, then it's a whole different perspective. It's a whole different thought about it than it was back in the day. So getting that back to men seeking counseling, I think I agree with Brian, is totally necessary. You only have one life to live, and you should never deprive yourself of that opportunity. However, a lot of us cave in to societal pressure.
Societal expectations, yeah, and that's what I'm hearing as well. And I want to kind of throw this out there too, Brian. All of us are people of faith. We believe in God. Yeah. We love the Lord. And then we have problems. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, so what does that mean in the context of what we do and say, how we practice our faith? And, we worship and we interact with people who are like-minded people, and we engage in community service, and we see the underside of life sometimes. And sometimes we're part of the underside of life, if the truth be told, even though sometimes we elevate ourselves above the place where people really are dealing with challenges and issues. And then sometimes we are the people, because we go to worship and you see a large group of people who are praising the Lord and having a wonderful time, and then they go home and there's domestic violence, there's poverty, there's child abuse, there's incest, there's sexual assault, there's low self-esteem, there's depression. There are real issues. I mean, even before they get to the car from the church to the parking lot, the issues have kicked in. So where do we stand in terms of an organized process of helping people understand that this large societal stigma that's been associated with mental health counseling is something that needs to go by the wayside? Because when you need help, and you need to go to somebody who's qualified, who's been trained to be able to provide that help for you.
And something that came to my mind as I was listening to Mark talk, and this is from my own personal experience. One thing that I realized, whether we tell people or allow people to know that we're getting counseling or not, they're going to talk about us. people know that we have issues. Oftentimes, if people spend enough time with you, they know what the issues are. Whether you think you need counseling or not, and I've experienced this amongst my friends. Now, my good friends will tell me the truth. But I realize I've been in settings where there will be a group of people around and one person will leave, and then we'll start talking about the person and their issues and not having evidence, but being able to pinpoint by conversation, by actions and all of that, that they have probably gone through this, they're probably going through this. So my point is that whether you go to counseling or not, people are going to talk about you. The difference is, from my personal experience, once you go to counseling, people really can't say anything about you at that point. They can try to all they want, but the evidence starts showing in the growth that you have, in the way you conduct yourself, your fruits start showing what you've experienced in the counseling. So you'd be better off getting the counseling and than not, because I mean, that's that's just the world we live in. People are going to talk, and they know you have issues. You can try and hide all you want, but people know what's going on in your house.
And you know, at the end of the day, it's not about answering to them.
Exactly.
You know, if I have a problem and I'm a single person, it's important for me to address those issues on my own, to be a healthy person. If I'm certainly interested in having a relationship with somebody, it's incumbent upon me to fix myself before I get into a situation where I'm now broken and I'm expecting the relationship to fix me, which a lot of people have that sort of distorted concept about relationships. We often talk numerically 50-50, but if you can't bring 100% of yourself into the relationship and your partner can't bring 100%, I mean, you're lost, you know, as far as math is concerned. And so it's important that we focus on what we need to focus on, independent of what other people think. And when we have support of our friends who are going to tell us and give us good support and advice, in the process of saying, you need help, I will go with you, I will support you through your process and your journey. And that's a wonderful experience to have. And then to have faith bodies, faith communities, faith congregations say that beyond the walls of this church, we're going to pray for you. You know, God bless you, we're going to pray. But beyond that, we're also going to point you in the right direction. People always talk about, well, you know, I went cold turkey when I had a substance abuse problem. Well, that's good. God bless you. That happened with you. I will tell you for a fact, the majority of people don't have that experience. If you have a mental health issue, it just doesn't clear up because you ignore it, deny it, or want it to go away, or because you had a good weekend. You know, if you have a clinical issue, you need to address it from a clinical perspective. And so we've got to do a better job within our faith communities to make that happen. And we're going to talk just a little bit more about that in just a moment. I'm really enjoying this conversation, guys. I mean, you guys are really rolling with the information. We appreciate that. Simply Single will come back in just a few moments. I believe we're going to be joined by Dr. Renee, and she'll give us another perspective on the stuff that we're talking about. We'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
Welcome back to Simply Single, the men's edition. And we're joined right now by Dr. Renee, a regular correspondent on the broadcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, you've been listening once again, as you always do. You're our listening ear. And you've heard all this great dialogue that we've had with the guys today about just the whole socialization process that we go through as boys growing up and then into our teenage years and then we become men. We kind of have this idea about how things work. Put upon us by society. And part of that is we're going to be tough, we're going to be strong, We're not going to allow things to get us down. We're always going to be in control of things. And then the ultimate reality happens, because it's going to happen. We're going to lose control. But we won't turn to the source that can give us the help, and that's counseling. So just share a little bit about what you've heard and what your thoughts are.
Yeah. And I can totally agree with both gentlemen here, with everyone here, because men are afraid that they are going to be judged and they are going to be demeaned. So that's very major when it comes to counseling, is, how is that person then going to perceive me, And one thing that's interesting is that the devil wants us to keep these secrets and keep bound, but I say, I'll tell my own stuff, then you can't blackmail me with it. Okay. Yes. So, because I put it out there, and just as Brian was saying, the issues are already showing, people already know. So I just put a name to it. Yes, I have this issue or that issue. And that truth is something I always say sets you free. It sets you free to stand in the truth of, this is what I'm going through, and so the devil then has no more power over the issue, because he loves to dwell in that darkness and in that secret. But when you bring it out, then when you aren't afraid anymore of what society is going to say or how they're going, because as you said, you only have one life, and it needs to be life more abundantly. But when you come to counseling, it has got to be a place where you do feel that compassion and that love. And I know for me, it's very important. I am always honored for anybody who wants to come to me for counseling. That's an honor, and that's a sacred trust, and that's something that I really take near and dear to my heart. It's not something that, they got an issue, they got a problem, and I think that especially Black men, they are very sensitive to how that person, as soon as they walk in the door, how they react, how they act toward whatever issue that they bring up. It's very important. And they have seen how people react just when they say a little something out in public. So they feel like this is what this is going to be. I just last night watched this show, and I won't say the name of the show, but this man came to this particular show for help, this Black man, and the help he needed was over the top. It was really a lot. And he wrote into the show or whatever he did, but he came for help. And it was so awful, because the person turned, the counselor or the facilitator turned on him, and you're an awful person, you're a liar, you're this, you're that, and you need to take responsibility for it, and da-da-da-da. And the man got up and left. And it just haunted me all through the night, because she did not take that sacred trust. And I looked at that show and I said to myself, if any Black male sees this show, they're going to say, that's why I don't come to counseling. That's why. It's because they're afraid that they are going to be condemned and looked at in a different light, and not being able to express themselves as they should. So it is very important, though, as Kenny, who is a counselor, and I just revere him and his work, and I've sat under some of his workshops and things, he has said, is that if you need help, get help. The thing of it is if it does not fit, then let that go. But don't let the counseling go. Just, this is not the person, or we don't vibe together, or or they can't handle whatever issues that I have. Men, period, are taught, to be strong and not let things bother them, and you don't need to go to the doctor and all of those kinds of things. Okay, but that should not be of a Christian, okay? Because God says, cast all your cares on him. He cares for you. And we're supposed to trust in him. And so if we get this relationship, this horizontal, the vertical, right, relationship right with God, then we can sit and have counseling. and not be ashamed, because the reason that the devil doesn't want you to have counseling is for two reasons. Is because your issues that you've had in life is for your salvation, okay? And it's for somebody else's salvation as well. It's for you to say, I can't keep living this kind of life. I must be born again. That's what the Bible says. I must be born again. So whatever issues have happened in your life, it's for your salvation. It's to say, God, I can't do this no more. I need something. And then it's when you get help, you tell your brother. That's it, somebody else. You know, and Brian is such a force. You know, he will say, I got counseling. Dude, I see you need it too. Here, take this card. Do this, that, and the other. And the person is glad. But that's what we're supposed to do, is when you get that freedom, you tell someone else. Yes.
Well, if I may add,
Yeah,
Dr. Renee, excellent commentary. From the previous segment, I just wanted to make sure that I clarified something to tie in directly to what you're saying. Although many of us feel societal pressure, and sometimes we feel that we're going to cave in because of societal pressure, you cannot govern your life based on what society says.
That's right.
Two principles: accountability and transparency. At the end of the day, you are responsible. You are responsible for what you do going forward, and you need to be held accountable for your own actions and your actions that you do for others. So at the same time, don't make excuses. Don't make excuses for yourself just because society has these stereotypes and society calls itself trying to draw this box around you. Be accountable and be transparent. And for me personally, it's all about being a man.
Yeah, and let me tie in, beautifully said, by the way, Mark. I think the issues of accountability and transparency is so important. We have to be honest about who we are.
Yes.
And Dr. Renee, God knows who we are. Who we hiding from? I mean, what's the facade?
That's
Yes.
right.
You know,
That's
we put
right.
it out there all we want, but God knows who we are, and we can be as good looking on the outside as we want to be and seem like we got it all together. If we jacked up and messed up inside, it ain't gonna work. That's the bottom line. But I wanted to kind of tie in what you're saying, and of course I won't have that opportunity right now, but I do want to say this real quickly as we wrap this up, that I want to thank you for being here. We talked about a lot of things related to the whole idea about just being responsible for our own lives. The way that we have been socialized perhaps has a great impact on our life. But if we need help, the one thing that we all can say is that get it.
Amen.
Right.
If you need it, get it. And just want to thank you. Dr. Renee, thank you for being here today.
Anytime. Thanks
All
for
right.
having me.
Brian, once again, thanks for
Thanks for having me.
sitting in today. All right, great. Mark, thanks for being a part of the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
All right, good to
Appreciate
have
it.
everybody here
All right.
today once again. And I'm Kenny Anderson for the men's edition of Simply Single. We thank you for being here today. We'll talk to you again soon.
Baby doll was in the dollhouse, Bobby Ken, how it's supposed to be. But it seems like something's missing from the equation, you and me. Tell me, why am I not having fun in this game we play? Well, if you're tired of trying to fight the fantasy, you need to hear what I have to say. Okay, get your dancing shoes on, we're gonna have some fun today. Hey, hey, single people all over the world say God made me this way. Hey, hey, you don't need nobody else to have some fun today. And just snap your fingers from side to side and say I'm okay. Okay.